To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land, your land, your land, your land.
Lucid.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Explore the Mouse Podcast, a podcast by Disney lovers for Disney lovers. Come join us as we dive into the wonderful world of Disney.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Here is your host.
It's Casey.
And it's Eric.
Welcome to Explore the Mouse Podcast.
Endgame was crazy.
Exactly what he said he was going to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 28. We are talking about Endgame. So if you've seen Endgame, you know what we're talking about. If you haven't, I am going to tell you right now to stop listening. Leave because this is going to be a no-holds-barred spoiler episode.
So stop listening, go watch it, and then come back.
Yes.
We want you to leave and then never come back.
But we want you to listen to this episode, but it is going to be fulfilled with spoilers.
I mean, there's just no way around it. Like, you know, we tried with Captain Marvel, that you just kind of feel like you're just talking about, like, the previews at that point. So we just said, you know what, we're done. We did it with Dumbo, we're just doing spoilers. People still listened and responded, so we're doing it.
So much happened in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, so much so that we're going to zoom through the current events at Disney real quick, and then we're just going to get into it.
Yeah, so let's get the Disney news real quick.
Trying to put an outline together for this, I was like, this podcast episode is going to be 3 hours.
Well, we're gonna shoot for our normal time.
Yeah, it's not going to be 3 hours, guys.
But it may go a little bit over our normal time just because there is so much. But let's get to Disney news real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about the new treats coming to Magic Kingdom. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the Aladdin donut yet?
I have.
Okay.
I think it's called like Wish Granted donut or something. Yeah.
So it's a donut with like glitter, like frosting with glitter on it.
Yeah.
And then it has a blue cotton candy, kind of like feather almost. Kind of looks like it was from Aladdin's.
No, it looks like the smoke coming out of the genie lamp.
Oh, is that what it looks like?
That's what it looks like. Yeah. Because the chocolate is a genie lamp.
Oh, that's right. It is.
Oh my god.
I was sitting there thinking the whole time that
it was the feather.
I thought it looked like Prince Ali's.
No, it's the smoke coming out of the genie lamp.
Okay, Dad.
Yeah, it's got like Wish Granted or something.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It was Genie. Anyways, it looks delicious.
It does.
And I'm kind of hoping it's still there when we're there in a couple weeks. So we'll see about that, hopefully. But I'm really excited about this one, which is the Mickey Mouse milkshake. Which is over at Anti-Gravity's, which, by the way, Anti-Gravity's has been kicking it up, like, big time.
So underrated. I don't know that they've been kicking it up or that we just didn't know about, like, didn't pay enough attention.
I don't think we paid enough attention. I think
that's what it was.
You got to think about it. We've always passed Anti-Gravity's to go kind of straight towards, like, our, Mickey pretzel stand,
Yeah.
And I just think we've always passed it. And, like, Anti-Gravity's from now on is like that must stop for us because they are just killing it when it comes to the treat game. So the Mickey Mouse milkshake they have is a strawberry flavored milkshake. This is where I got the yellow cotton candy from. The yellow cotton candy, which is the big cotton candy is a huge thing right now.
They use it for a lot of their treats.
Well, especially because over at Epcot in China, they're doing the Chinese cotton candy right now, and it's a huge craze. But this is with yellow cotton candy and then a huge Mickey marshmallow topper. It looks really, really good. And I love strawberry milkshakes, so it's something that I'm definitely going to try.
Yeah.
But the donut looks pretty good, too. But let's go over to...
Well, there's also the Tangled Eclair.
Oh, that's right, the Tangled Eclair.
Which I'm going to be honest with you guys, this is probably more of a photo op than it is. I mean, I'm sure it's delicious, but it's really pretty.
Yeah.
It's just a gorgeous eclair with all these, like, real flowers, and they're purples and yellows, and they match all the Tangled crap. So, It's cute.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good photo op. I'll probably buy one to take a picture while we're there.
Absolutely.
To be honest with you.
Let's jump over to Hollywood Studios real quick.
Yes.
And Hollywood Studios has a lot going on right now.
Yes, happy
today,
30th.
Happy 30th, which is today. So Hollywood Studios is celebrating a huge, huge birthday. And there's a lot going on there, not even just in the parks, but with the food and everything, too.
Yeah.
And Casey
By the
has...
way, they hosted a media event last night. And the media people that got to be there got to go into Galaxy's Edge.
Yes, they got to go behind
Not
the
the
wall.
whole thing. They just got to go behind the wall in Toy Story Land, and they got to see Batu. One of the people that I follow, which, by the way, she's at Living by Disney, really great Instagram account. I don't know her. I just follow her. I love her. They couldn't take their phones or anything, but when they came out, they were able to record and talk about it. She literally cried because she was like so floored at what it looks like.
Yeah.
So, and they only got to see a portion of it. And she said it's much bigger than we all think. So.
Oh, it looks huge.
Yeah.
If you think about it, what they took down to create Galaxy's Edge, that was a lot they took. And they also revealed, and this was actually, they can take pictures because it was outside the wall. They revealed the costumes that all the cast members are going to be wearing, which I think are really, really cool.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some of the stuff in there real quick so we can move on to the Endgame review.
Yes.
But let's talk about, and I'm just going to kind of give you some of the stuff that you can... Yeah, I'm going to give you a rundown, but I'm going to give you some of the stuff that you can do specifically for the 30th anniversary. And this is today only for the 30th anniversary. So if you're listening to this today and you're over at Hollywood Studios, they're doing a huge anniversary star-studded celebration. It's beginning at 10 a.m., but it's basically throughout the whole day. There's going to be this whole thing going on there throughout the whole day. And then they're also premiering Wonderful World of Animation tonight at 9:05 at the center stage, which will be a pretty cool thing to see. And then you could also go see everything else that's new. Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy, Disney Junior Dance Party, Incredible Celebration. Please check out Toy Story Land as well. And then, like I said, go get your picture taken with the wall over at Galaxy's Edge. And you could also pick up a commemorative 30th anniversary poster as you exit the park today. So it's a free gift that you can get, which is pretty cool. Let's talk about some of the treats real quick.
Yes. Are you ready?
Go for it.
So we have the Sorcerer's Hat, Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse celebration cakes, the key lime pie verrine. I'm not entirely sure what verrine is. But it's listed several times. There's lemon blueberry cheesecake verrine, raspberry mousse verrine, tres leches verrine. We have lightsaber churros, which I've seen some pictures of. They are really, really cool.
Yeah.
There's a Kylo Ren cupcake.
Which is awesome.
This one I'm really excited about. The playful Luxo Ball mousse.
That looks really
so
good.
cute. It looks just like the little Luxo Ball.
Yeah.
And then there's incredible macarons. And each one of these are at all different locations around Hollywood Studios. Some of them are at multiple locations, and some of them are only at single locations. When you get to the parks, there's a pamphlet, and they give you, on the entire back page of the pamphlet, lists all of these snacks.
Gotcha. And by the way, a verrine is kind of like a layered type of like...
Kind of like a trifle?
Kind of like a trifle,
That's what
yeah.
I was picturing,
yeah.
but I wasn't
and
sure.
that's really what it is. It's kind of like a little trifle thing.
Okay.
But yeah, and then they also have some specialty drinks too that you could only get right now. And they have the Galaxy Margarita, the 30th Celebration Fizz, which is at the Brown Derby Lounge, and then the 30th Celebration Banana Split Cocktail. I'm not.
Oh, I'm totally
I'm
in.
not a banana flavored person.
I know.
I love bananas, but I'm not a banana flavored person. Last thing, a bit of news we want to talk about, and this is really exciting, and we put it up at explorethemouse.com/blog, is the introduction or the announcement of the new Toy Story restaurant, the table service.
Which just happened yesterday. They just announced it.
So really excited about that. You can read my full review on it and my full information on it at explorethemouse.com/blog. But they announced yesterday that they are going to be putting together a new table service, no release date yet, but it's going to be basically a rodeo-themed Toy Story kind of barbecue restaurant.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, and it's going to be basically like when you walk into the park or Toy Story Land, you have the Giant Woody. It's going to be off to the right behind Giant Woody.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, is going to be really cool because they need a table service. All they have is Woody's lunchbox, and they need more food there. And I think it's going to be a really cool addition to the park. But all right, let's get away from news and let's get to Endgame because there's so much to talk about.
Guys, usually our episodes are so we don't even talk about what we're going to talk about ahead of time. We come sit down and we're like, all right, let's do it.
We have an outline for each other what we're going to do.
Today we had to do an outline because there's so much. We had to. Like, we didn't have a choice. We were like, how do we even approach this subject? Because it's so big. I think we could do an entire episode on, like, the rating and then on what's left. And
so first off, if you haven't seen it yet, go see it. And I'm going to give one last warning. If you haven't seen it, stop listening now, watch it, and then come back and listen to this episode, because there is going to be
Eric
total
and you
spoilers.
Don't mind spoilers, you can listen. But
just
know that we're going to be talking about what's going on in the movie.
Yes,
or what happened.
There's going to be a lot of conversations, Easter eggs, some spoilers, everything like that. And they did $1.2 billion in their first weekend.
Well, they knew it was going to be a big weekend.
Star Wars Episode 9 has a lot to live up to, because $1.2 billion in
I don't think they're going to do as well.
I don't think so either.
Because you have to think about it. Avengers is coming from like all different angles. Star Wars, I don't need to see it opening weekend. I mean, I will because of you, and I will because of the podcast. But like normally, I wouldn't need to see it opening weekend.
Yeah.
But Avengers, there's so many people coming from different angles that they want to see it. If you're a Guardians of the Galaxy fan, you're going to see it. If you're an Iron Man fan, you're going to see it. Star Wars,
guaranteed.
You just pretty much have to be a Star
So
Wars fan to want to see it.
let's start with you. Let's start with your thoughts and your rating.
Okay.
Just give us a rundown.
Okay. What do you need, like a rundown? Let me pull my notes up here real quick. Okay. So here's my bullet points for my overall thoughts, and then I'll give you my rating out of 10, and I'll explain why. Overall thoughts. I loved it because everything Marvel is amazing. I went in with high expectations, and I walked away feeling even better than I went in. I think they did such a good job of tying everybody together so cohesively, and I think that they did that in the last one. Mm-hmm. Because that's where we start seeing everybody like, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy's here, and Black Panther's here with Scarlet or Black Widow. Like it was all. I think they did a good job of tying everybody in so cohesively, and I think they continued that. I loved how they waited to bring everybody back 100%, like to make sure that we knew that they were all back from the snap. I love that they waited quite a bit, and it wasn't like it happened at the very beginning of the movie. Yeah. I have seen a lot of people who think that Captain Marvel should have been more of the movie and should have been a bigger part. I don't agree. I liked that she was only in the very beginning and then came back at the end. I liked how she came back. Mm-hmm. But I was totally fine with her not being in the movie the whole time. And not being such a big part because she just had a movie. Like, she just had her own movie, guys. Yeah. She was busy. So I was totally fine. I don't agree with people that have a problem with that. Okay, so out of 10, I rated it a 9.5. Okay. And here's why.
Interesting.
Here's why. So I do my points by quarter points, right? So I gave it 4 quarter point deductions, bringing it back down to a 9. And then I gave it 2 quarter point additions because of some reason. So here's my quarter point deductions real quick. First one, they made me cry because Iron Man had a daughter. And I just thought that was so cute. And I just love Tony Stark so much. So they lost a point for that. They made me cry. These are my opinions. Okay, they lost another quarter point because they made me cry when Peter came back and talked to Tony. Okay, everything has to do with Tony. Okay. Another quarter point deduction, which this really should be a full point, but I gave him a quarter point because they killed Iron Man. So, had a problem with that. I mean, I knew it was going to come, but I just had a real problem with it. I knew he was going to save the world. I knew it, but it was just really hard for me. And then I gave him another quarter point deduction for cutting Captain Marvel's hair, because no. I didn't like it. So they lost another quarter point. So now that's brought them down to 9 points, but I'm about to give them half a point back. So they gained another quarter point for introducing Rescue as a character, and we'll touch more on that later. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, we'll touch more on it later. I also gave them another quarter point for America's ass, because I just loved everything about it. So, I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to be straight honest with you. I don't have a point system like Casey does.
I thought long and hard, because I wanted to deduct points for Thor, but I didn't.
Did think long and hard. I don't have a point system like that per se. So, my thoughts on it initially is it lived up to every expectation that I had for that movie. When we finished Infinity War, and then even the end credit for Captain Marvel, And if you guys seen Captain Marvel and you watch the end credit, you'll know what I'm talking about because it ties right into basically the end of Infinity War and the beginning of Endgame, with her coming looking for Tony Fury for the actual pager that you saw at the end of Infinity War. So my whole
Nick
thing...
Fury.
What did I say?
Tony Fury.
I'm sorry,
Nick
Fury.
Tony's just always in your mind.
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, Tony Stark's the best. Anyways, Nick Fury. So, like... my thoughts were it lived up to every expectation that I had for Endgame. I was not disappointed one bit. Yeah. There wasn't one piece of that movie, of that 3-hour movie, where I sat there saying, this is too long, they're dragging it on, doesn't make sense, this doesn't... Every single bit of that movie like fit perfectly into that puzzle that it needed to be. So with that being said, my rating is a 9.8.
Oh.
I give it a 9.8. Only reason why is because I don't like to give 10s, you know?
Yeah,
because once you give a 10, you're pretty much like that's your basis. And I believe that Endgame, not only storytelling wise, but just the way that the movie was created, it was filmed, it was edited. Yeah. Everything about it was almost pure perfection. So I gave it a 9.8, which is like extremely high for me to give. And I'll get into some of the details later. I'm not going to give like why I did a 9.8 here, 9.8 there. I'll kind of touch base a little bit more on kind of where we're going with that. So with that being said, let's segue and let's talk about some of the Easter egg and some of the connections. Because this movie is filled with Easter eggs. Yeah. Filled with connections to past movies and even the comic books.
We've already said we need to go see it several more times because I know there's more that we missed. And there's some that, like, at the end of the movie I brought up to Eric and he was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I didn't think about that. And same thing for him. Like, he said that to me and I was like, oh, my God, you're right. I totally didn't catch that.
And now, if you're a big fan of the comic books, too... which I have to be straight honest, and this is not a knock at anyone, but with these new Marvel movies, it's so easy for people to become fans of Marvel because of just the movies.
Well, that's me. I mean,
but if you look back at the comic books, from a nerdy aspect, there is so many nods to the Marvel comics in this movie. I think probably the most nods to the original comic books than there has been in any Marvel movie ever. Yeah. Which we're going to talk about some of them as well. But the cool thing that I loved about some of the Easter eggs they did too is that there was a lot of nods in these Easter eggs back to the original movies. You know? Yeah. Like let's start with the opening credit or the opening scene, I mean. Yes. Because the opening scene shows Clint. Yeah. Okay. It shows Hawkeye. If you're not familiar. It shows Clint, Hawkeye, on his property, basically wearing an ankle monitor. And basically what that is that's actually like deleted scene that wasn't used from Civil War. Oh. So when you see that scene at the beginning of Endgame, that was actually a scene that like basically was filmed to be at the end of Civil War, because as we all know, at the end of Civil War, Hawkeye and Ant-Man basically took kind of a plea deal and they went on house arrest. Yeah. As against the Sokovia Accord. Yeah. So even just that intro right there showed a lot, because Hawkeye calls his daughter at one point when she's shooting the bow and arrow. Yeah. You know, he says, "Nice shot, Hawkeye," which is a nod to future characters, because he wasn't the only Hawkeye in the comic books. You know, so it's just a really cool way that they did a lot of these intros into future characters, including some of the Marvel Junior characters or Avenger Juniors. There was a lot of nods, which we'll continue talking about through this. I
know it's so hard because we keep being like, okay, well, we'll touch on that later. But we'll get to them.
But we will, because they kind of fall perfectly in line.
Like
we're trying to go from like a little bit from the beginning of the movie all the way to the end of the movie. We don't want to jump around, and it just makes it a lot easier for us to go from the beginning.
After like 2 minutes ago, I mentioned Tony.
Did you notice that the intro to Marvel, when they did the Marvel intro, is that they kept out every Marvel character that was vanished?
In the Snap. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
the only people that appeared in the opening credits for Marvel were everyone that survived the Snap, which I think was a really cool just addition, you know?
Me and my buddy noticed that.
Oh,
we
so by the
sat
way,
separate at the movies.
The movie theater was so busy, and we went with my sister and my niece, and there was only 3 seats together and then one directly behind. But the thing is, our movie theater has those really nice reclining seats, so it's not like you're right behind.
Yeah.
So my wife ended up having a blind date with someone.
Oh my God, I loved him. Missed connections. If you're listening to this,
Yeah, she ended up having a blind date with someone randomly.
Honestly, he was like the best person to watch the movie with because like I don't like talk a lot during movies. I'm not about that. But the guy to my right kept talking.
Yeah.
And like, well, basically his wife didn't speak English, so he was giving her the entire movie in Spanish the entire time. But the guy to my left was like my buddy, and we were just chit-chatting.
Yeah.
And
well, and I heard her.
I heard the baby,
and I heard her behind me too, because I was sitting right in front of you.
So there were some things that like he would just like kind of elbow me, and then we would kind of chat about it. So it wasn't like he was just instantly chatting in my ear, but we noticed that, and we brought that up to each other.
All right, so let's talk about the Tony stranded in space. All right, so a few episodes back, we talked about Tony in the preview.
Yes.
And you know his like message to Pepper. So we finally get to see exactly where it was, and I remember I said specifically that he made some key words in there, including rescue, which was Pepper Potts' character in the comic books. And at first I was like, oh man, like she literally is going to come to the rescue. I was not expecting it to be Captain Marvel. But I'm really excited because they did introduce her as rescue later in the movie. But the one thing that I love that they did is that they did not, they did not sit there and like bring her in right at the beginning. Yeah. You know, they hinted throughout the movie.
Well, they hinted fairly close to the beginning after the 5 years had happened when Morgan had taken the mask out from their garage.
Yeah.
And he said, "This is a project I'm working on for Mommy." So, what's that? We all knew. Most of us knew. Eric looked back like, it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see her show up. I was really excited about that. So we all know that there's going to be some kind of something where they're going to explain how she turned into rescue and that whole process.
And then the cool thing about that scene too that I really loved was Tony kind of hinted at some stuff with Morgan. And by the way, Morgan Stark in the comic books is actually Tony's uncle. It's not
Morgan
a daughter.
Is Tony's uncle?
Well,
do you mean niece?
No.
Morgan is Tony's uncle?
In the comic books, Morgan is a guy, and Morgan Stark.
Oh, sorry. See, I don't read the comics.
Yes.
That's why. No, you're dumb.
In the comic books, there isn't a Morgan Stark daughter. So this is kind of where like a lot of they've taken nods from the comic books and added it. But one of the cool things that they did is they kind of almost hinted a little bit at Morgan Stark maybe becoming Iron Man down the road, because there is like Avengers kind of like juniors or like teen Avengers.
I don't know. We have differing opinions on this. I don't agree with that.
I'm going by the straight comic book version of everything because you know this movie really stayed true to the comic books.
Yeah.
With a lot of nods, and I think that there's going to be like a teen Avengers.
Oh no, I think there's going to be another Iron Man, but I don't think it's going to be Morgan. We'll get to that.
I think Pepper is going to be a big part of it.
No, I don't think it's going to be Pepper either.
Okay, we'll see. I'm curious to see kind of where that goes. But what other Easter eggs kind of stood out for you?
One of the biggest ones for me, because I've been trying to figure this out since the last Guardians of the Galaxy, was how did Gamora know that the Soul Stone was at Vormir? She kept saying, like, I know, and I can't tell you why, and I know, blah, 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 blah. So the minute that they left present tense Nebula alone with Gamora, I knew that's how it happened.
Yeah.
Like I knew it was going to come up in this movie. I just had a feeling. So, and I don't know, maybe someone correct me if I'm wrong if I missed something in the last Guardians of the Galaxy, but she just kept saying like, I know where it is, and I can't tell you how I know where it is, and I can't tell you where it is, blah, blah, blah. So as soon as they left present tense Nebula alone with Gamora, I knew that that's how she knew.
And that was the cool thing about this is that there was Easter eggs upon Easter eggs.
Oh, yeah.
Within an Easter egg.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you look back on it, and real quick, one of the cool things that they did with this movie is they went back to several of the other movies. They went back to Age of Ultron, which was actually referenced a ton in this movie. They went back to Age of Ultron a lot. They went back to the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, the first one. And the cool thing is that looking back at those movies, there were so many answers or questions that were answered, and so many Easter eggs that were in those movies
questions
that I was like,
that you didn't even know you had. Like,
well, like they're in Age of Ultron, the final battle. You know, we were all kind of wondering, like, with, I mean, Doctor Strange wasn't Doctor Strange yet.
Yeah.
But that whole, group of people, we were wondering, like, wait, where were they? Because they were in New York, like right down the street from this, and they were referenced, like, kind of hinted at in Age of Ultron. And then in this movie, they show exactly where they were at.
Yeah.
So to kind of give you guys a quick snit, I mean, you've already seen this, but the reason we keep talking about this is because kind of what everyone has already thought and hinted at is that the way to do this is to have to undo the snap. Well, to undo the snap, you need to go back and get the Infinity Stones. Well, everything was destroyed. Thanos destroyed the Infinity Stones. So the only way to do it, and this is where Ant-Man came back in, was to go back in time and to create that time machine, which Tony Stark did. Yeah. Go back in time to all these different eras, like Age of Ultron in 2014, Guardians of the Galaxy, yada, yada, and go collect all the stones back again and basically have that gauntlet.
Okay, wait, I just had two thoughts just because you said that real quick.
Yeah.
First, this is another thing where they make everybody so cohesive. They couldn't have gone into the quantum realm without Ant-Man, but they couldn't have done the math without Banner and without Tony and without, like, they all needed each other, which is just so cool. I just love how they do all of that.
Oh, yeah.
And they wouldn't have done it without Natasha pushing them and all of that stuff. And then my other thing was the entire time my buddy to my side and I were like, why don't they just go back and go get more of those little things for Ant-Man? Like, why don't they just go back and go get more of those things so we could just keep going back into the quantum realm? Like, why couldn't we just do that from the beginning? Like, it was like everybody has one shot. The whole time we were like, why don't they just go get some more?
Well, I think
so when they did it, we were like, oh, okay, somebody heard us. That's good. That's good.
Well, that was the thing is I don't think they realized it because until Loki, like, they realized that he had the Tesseract and disappeared, which is a whole nother Easter egg because now Oh, I'm sorry.
I have that. That's for, like,
okay,
later.
But I think it wasn't until that moment that they realized that Hank Pym's, like, they were like, wait, we can go back and we have the Tesseract.
Yeah.
And which was the other one they had? Forgot the other Infinity Stone they had in the same.
The Knowledge Stone.
Was it?
No, there's not even.
There's not a Knowledge Stone.
There's not a Knowledge Stone.
Whoa. Okay. The Knowledge Stone. Now we're just making stuff up.
There's not a Knowledge Stone. Power Stone. No, it wasn't the Power Stone. It's
the cheeseburger stone. It's that one, right?
That's another Easter egg. Cheeseburgers.
But that was the whole thing, is that when they went back to the 70s...
Good Lord, what stone is it?
I'm just going to keep talking because it's going to be a long thing.
It's fine.
But the thing was that when they went back, like, they didn't realize that. But then when they went back to the 70s, they realized that all that stuff they needed was right there. It literally changed the whole aspect because when Loki took off with the Tesseract, it kind of changed that whole dynamic of that movie. It went in a whole completely different direction.
No, they could have done it from the beginning. They could have just gone back to go get them.
Yeah. So, that was a big change in the movie, and there was a lot of Easter eggs in there too, based off of, like, different names and even people that were in there. We had that's where we actually had our Stan Lee encounter, which is really cool.
By the way, did anybody else want? Like, I thought Tony was going to say to his dad, "By the way, Tony's a great name," when he was getting in the limo. Anybody else?
I wanted it to.
I thought he was going to name himself. That's totally an Iron Man thing.
I really wanted it to, but then I think the whole thing comes back to you don't want to change your future from going back in the past. And I think
freaking talk to his dad.
Yeah, but he was going to be named Tony no matter what. So what happened if he said Tony? His dad said, "No, I don't like that." You know what I mean?
True.
So let's move on to a couple other Easter eggs. So one of the other big Easter eggs that I want to talk about is Captain America, because there was so much so many Easter eggs fulfilled, I guess you can say, with Captain America. The first one started with Age of Ultron, where he tried picking up Thor's hammer. Remember when Thor put it?
Yeah.
And in this movie, he finally takes control of Thor's hammer.
Oh, I stood up out of my seat.
Which let me tell you,
literally jumped up out of my seat. I was so excited.
Which was
elated.
in the reclined position, by the way, so that was impressive.
Yeah.
But the thing that I loved about that whole scene is that they made it seem like Thor was.
Oh yeah, I thought that's who it was.
I thought it was too, and then all of a sudden, let me tell you, when they showed Captain America with it, it gave me goosebumps right now, because literally everyone in there just.
Oh, the whole
freaked
theater.
out.
Yeah, the whole theater.
Nerded out.
Which didn't happen too often
No.
in the movie. I thought that there would be several points, when someone died or when something happened. I thought it would be a big uproar or a big thing from the theater. That was the first time the entire theater was like, yeah! Everybody was so excited. Sorry if I just screamed and you're listening in your car. I'm so sorry.
But they nerded out at that part, and that was an Easter egg that was set early on in the Avengers movies, which I thought was really cool. But some of the stuff that I thought was really, really cool was kind of the Easter eggs towards the end of the movie. Yeah. So after and again, if you're listening to this, it's because you've already seen it, so you know what we're talking about.
You don't have to put that disclaimer.
Yeah, I do. So he goes back in time and returns all the Infinity Stones to where they originally found them, so it doesn't screw up any timeline.
Right.
So he goes back to return them. Well, then all of a sudden he doesn't come back.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were questioning, why didn't he come back? And then they showed the scene of him sitting on the bench, which in the comic book series, there is a series of comic books of Captain America where he is the old man. But the cool thing that I loved about it, and this is probably my most favorite Easter egg of that whole movie, was when he gives Falcon the shield. Because as a lot of people that like the comic books know, is that Captain America just wasn't one person. It wasn't just Steve Rogers.
Right.
Captain America was several different people, including the person Roscoe, who was wearing that uniform in the 70s scene.
Yes.
Roscoe was a Captain America character.
Yeah.
So it was just a really cool nod to the comic books for me. And as a lover of the comic books and not just the Marvel current movies, it was probably one of my favorite scenes of that whole movie, because it truly was passing the torch. And there wasn't a lot of passing the torch in this movie, but that scene right there was a straight passing the torch. Yeah. But it was also kind of a sad moment too, because now I'm questioning, is that the end of Steve Rogers?
Well, so that's okay. So can we say that we're done with, for right now, just for the sake of the length of the episode?
Yeah.
We're done with Easter eggs.
We'll probably hit some Easter eggs just.
Yeah, in this next section. So this next section, I kind of labeled questions we're left with and what's next for the Marvel comic universe. Yeah. So one of the ones that I had written down was, will we get to see Captain America's love story?
I hope so.
I don't think we will.
You don't think so?
And I think I'm basing it off of the fact where Falcon says, you want to tell me about her? And he says, no.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get that. I think they're going to let it lie. I don't know that we're done with Steve Rogers.
So you think that end scene with them dancing is the end?
Stuff. I think that's I think that's what we're going to get out of him. There might be some, like I said, flashbacks with Steve Rogers, maybe in some other movies, but I think that's all we're going to get out of this Captain America.
Okay.
Out of Steve Rogers.
Because I'm curious about that too, with Disney Plus planning on doing so many, because they can't release so many Marvel movies in the theaters.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of Disney Plus coming out, is that they could release a lot of these movies straight to Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So it just makes me curious, will they do something? Because not saying that here's the thing, if this is the end of Steve Rogers, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Because I think that this movie fulfilled his role as Captain America.
Yeah. He is America's
even though Tony Stark is the true final hero of this movie, which we'll get to.
Well, they're all a hero in their own way.
But I think
Tony saved the universe. But
I think Steve Rogers though fulfilled his duty as Captain America in this movie, especially in that end scene, because he finally got to say Avengers Assemble.
Yeah.
Which was, everyone was waiting for so long to see, like, to hear him say that.
I just got the chills again.
I'm getting the chills.
Yeah.
And then seeing Doctor Strange open up the portals to all the different worlds, and then all the characters, because that was the first time that all the characters that disappeared and vanished came back.
Yeah.
Was that final scene with Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
Which I think was really, really cool.
Okay, so... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I was just going to go over these were my thoughts of kind of what we might be seeing in the coming years.
Hit me.
From this. I think we're going to get a rescue movie, obviously.
Yes.
And at first I was like, oh, well, it'll be like what happened in those 5 years, you know, that we missed, because that's when she became rescue, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, no, wait a minute, no. Because when the 5 years were up, when they came to visit Tony, she still wasn't rescued, because that was the day that Morgan found the mask in the garage. So it's not like in those 5 years she had become rescue, and we're going to get this movie of Tony teaching how to be rescue.
She just found it and became it.
Right. So now I'm like, oh, because that's when I was like, oh, well, we'll still get Tony in that movie. I don't think we will, because that's not when that happened. And we might get him for a little bit, but he didn't teach her how to become rescue. She figured it out. I'm sure Friday and Jarvis taught her how to do it, but yeah, I don't know, that was just interesting. So I think we're getting a rescue movie.
I also think Happy's going to play a big role in a rescue movie.
Yes. I think I really hope I would really like a Hulk movie to talk about the 5 years where Banner taught himself how to be both people.
Oh yeah, because that's a huge comic book series in its own.
Yeah, so I'm really hoping that we're going to get that. I also said, will Harley Quinn become an Iron Man? So if you're not familiar, and if you were curious as to who that young teen boy was at Tony's funeral, he's kind of standing right behind Wanda in the, like, you know, they kind of do all the groupings. He's standing off by himself. Yeah. Right before they pan over to Captain Marvel on the steps. He's like a teenage boy that's standing there. That's Harley Quinn. He was in Iron Man 3 with Iron Man. He's the one that did like the potato gun. And
little boy from Tennessee, I think it was?
Tennessee, yeah. When Iron Man's like kind of hiding out.
Yeah.
And he gives Harley this great like science place, lab. That's the word, a science place. A science lab place as a gift, so he can kind of, there, I did it again. Headbutt the microphone. I get so excited. So we know that Harley Quinn has continued to experiment and stuff. And we know that there are more Iron Men. So I think he's going to become an Iron Man, or maybe do the Disney Plus Avengers Junior or whatever it's going to be called. I think that's where they're going with that.
That's a great point. I think
that's why they threw him in there. Also, the kid who plays Harley Quinn has been at every single every single Marvel movie premiere and the 10-year anniversary. Like, he's been around. He's stayed around. So they've been keeping him since then. It's been He might have just been, or 6 years since.
He may have been just one of those Easter eggs you never thought was an Easter egg. And I didn't think about that, because I was thinking Morgan this whole time. And now that you say that.
That's why I'm saying I think we have differing opinions.
It definitely no, and actually I agree with you. Yeah. Now that you say that, I was like, you know what? Maybe this is what it was. Maybe that's why he was at that funeral. Because
he also has Tony's brain. Yeah. Like, he is an inventor. And I'm not saying Morgan doesn't. We just don't know enough about her yet. Yeah. But I think that's where we're going. So I think we're going to maybe get something out of him.
The comment with Morgan that got me going was the one where Tony said, you like to spend a lot of time in the garage. Yeah. And so did I. Right. That's what kind of got me wondering. But now you got
I'm
me.
not writing her off, but I think
Harley
he's our best bet.
I agree with you.
I have two more and then you can go. Is Gamora gone for good? Because she was taken in the snap, because she was part of Thanos' universe.
She wasn't taken in the snap, though. She was thrown to death for the Soul Stone. Remember? Before the snap. So Gamora technically did not die because of the snap. And similar to how they talked about Loki in the original movie.
Yeah, you're right.
In the original movie, they talked about it is that you cannot bring someone back that was killed like a natural way. The snap just vanished everyone, and they were able to redo that. They weren't able to bring people back. The only reason Gamora and Loki were in this movie is because they did those time things, which is going to be interesting because Loki disappeared with a Tesseract. So,
well, that's my last one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep going to that. I'm so excited about that. But the thing is that now I'm curious is at the end of that movie with Gamora, Gamora did show a sign because she saved Star-Lord. Okay?
Yeah.
She saved Star-Lord, but then she needed him in the junk. So my question did she turn good, or was she still part of Thanos' army at that point?
I don't know, but all I'm saying is at the very, very end, when the Guardians were in their ship, Star-Lord was searching for Gamora, and there's no signal for her.
I know.
He can't find her. So I think she's gone.
You think she's gone for good?
Well, I mean, we're getting a Guardians of the Galaxy 3, so maybe that's going to be part of the movie.
Maybe. Well, let's talk about Loki real quick, because I kind of want to go back to Guardians of the Galaxy, because there's a big thing that I...
So, my last thing was, are we getting something else from Loki? Because when they all went back to the past to go get the Tesseract, they were semi-successful, and then a fluke happened, thanks Hulk. The Tesseract ends up in Loki's hands and he disappears. So I don't know. I mean, does that mean we get something out of him, or is he dead like we thought he was in Infinity War? I don't know. I'd love to see some more of Loki.
Here's my thought on that.
Yeah.
Is that I think that scene right there, because it changed, Loki escaped with the Tesseract instead of getting arrested by Hydra. I think that changed the future for him.
Right.
Which I think Loki, there is going to be something with him again. Now, whether it's going to be in the next Guardians of the Galaxy, because this is what I want to talk about, is because we haven't talked about Thor yet. And let me tell you, if you guys want to laugh your butt off, you need to see this movie, or if you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about, is with Thor. He is the funniest character.
I was the complete opposite.
Really?
I was so annoyed by that whole thing.
Oh, I loved it.
I thought it was funny at first, and then I was like, okay, this is just dumb.
I loved it. I think the whole thing with Thor was perfect. And I guess it was just more of the sense is that it's not something you would expect out of Thor.
Right.
But again, within that Thor story, there was a lot of Easter eggs too. And this is kind of where we're going to go back a little bit, is if you look at the new Asgard, the new Asgard is actually in two separate movies before this. It's in, this is where Red Skull takes a hold of the Tesseract. And this is also where Odin, in Ragnarok, this is where Odin tells him this may be a good spot to build a new Asgard.
Yes.
And so he does build the new Asgard. And I think it's really cool, too, is that he passes the reins to Valkyrie as well.
Yes.
At the end of that. But more importantly, Thor... He made a comment where he said they were talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, and this is like towards the end, the final scene where you were saying that Gamora wasn't there and he was searching for a signal. Is he made a comment about we're the Asgardians of the Galaxy, which was actually a comic book title that Thor was in with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
I mean, he's on the ship with them, so he's hanging out with them.
I'm kind of excited to see Thor part of. I'm guessing he's going to be a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy series now.
That's how they left it.
Which I'm really excited about because him and Rocket together are super funny, and him as Star-Lord. Plus, I mean, I love that whole thing. Drax.
That was Eric, by the way.
Guardians of the Galaxy is probably one of my favorite, Marvel, MCU movies, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see what happens with that franchise, especially with Thor.
Maybe if Loki comes back. I don't know. I just would love to see more of Loki. I think he didn't get enough.
I think it's safe to say that this movie, too, answered a lot of questions, but also left so much open.
Yeah.
And which I think I love because it, like I said, with Disney Plus streaming service coming out in the fall and all these other movies being made, like Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Daily Mail reported today that they started filming.
Yeah, you mentioned that, which I'm really excited about.
Volume 3, yeah.
So I'm just really excited to see where that goes to, and also kind of lead in, because one thing that this movie didn't have that other Marvels did is that there was no end scene credits that left anything open.
Well, I think obviously they did that on purpose. Everything they do is on purpose.
Sure.
I think they did it to say there are no more Avengers movies in this series. There are no more The Avengers movies. This is it.
Yeah.
Now we have to go off into all the other different universes and do all their own things separately.
So let's talk about the deaths, because I know we'll leave the sad one for you till the end. But let's talk.
They were both sad.
I know, but let's talk about Black Widow and Hawkeye and Vormir.
Yeah.
Because that scene there kind of brought back, it kind of brought them back to the original Avengers. Yeah. There was a lot of like nods in there. Throughout the movies, you've heard them talk about Budapest, and there was another comment in this one from Hawkeye regarding Budapest. But the whole thing about them going to Vormir, it's an interesting thing because out of everyone that they could have sent to Vormir, they send these two people who has such a dynamic towards each other. Yeah. And originally were enemies. Yeah. They were originally enemies that became literally like the best of friends. Some people almost considered a love romance at one point. But this whole thing too between them, it wasn't like the scene from Infinity War with Thanos just throwing Gamora in. Right. It was like a back and forth, like, holy crap, who is going to sacrifice? It really became a sacrifice.
Yeah, it really became about sacrifice.
And it was just crazy to watch that whole scene unveil because I'm like, who is going to do, who is going to sacrifice themselves?
I knew Black Widow? The minute they got there that was who was going to die. Now who's going to die.
I wanted to think it was Black Widow because they put so much emphasis throughout the movie with Clint and his family because in the movie Clint's family disappears but he doesn't see them disappear. Right. He doesn't see them vanish, so he doesn't know what really happened to them at that time, and he was on house arrest, so he had no clue. He had no connections. So to kind of see, and then they brought him back when they wanted to test out the time machine, and he went back to see his family. Yeah. So they did a lot of hints, which made me kind of go, okay, were those hints of him seeing his family for the last time, or no. So you knew it was Black Widow from the beginning.
To remind us that he had a family, and she doesn't. And I think, she said it herself. She completed her task. It was to get everybody together to save the universe. That's what she did. That's what she lived for. Yeah. And she did it. She knew that it was going to work, and that's all she needed. Yeah.
So, with that being said, her character is obviously, the way that they did it, her character is, like, killed off. Yeah. But it does leave a lot of room, too, for them to do another movie because there isn't a lot known about Black Widow. Mm-hmm. And there was a couple nods in this, too. If you saw during that 5-year stint, there was a pair of ballet slippers on her desk, which in the first movie, she was a ballerina. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of stuff that was left unsaid, too, about Black Widow. So which makes me wonder if Marvel and Disney are going to come out and do like a Black Widow, I guess, prequel, I guess you can say, or her own storyline, because I think she definitely needs it, and I think Hawkeye too, because I
think it's safe to say that everybody could use their own movie. Like, we could say that about everyone.
I honestly would like to see them do a movie on Hawkeye when he becomes Ronin during those 5 years, and his, because they showed clips of him going across killing people, but I think it'd be really cool to see him turn into Ronin.
I'm sure we could. We could probably get a movie about the 5 years with the snap for everybody that was
sure.
left.
Well, let's talk about the Hulk, because that's one that's the Hulk is one that you really want to see.
About. Now, I've said for a while now that I want a Mark Ruffalo Hulk movie. I want a good one. So I've said it for a while now. But I think that this is where they need to do it, because there's so much left unsaid about the fact that, we've known since, I don't know, for a while now that Hulk is always within him. That came out, and there's
always that inner struggle.
He's always there. I just have to keep him at bay. So now he's telling us, I've learned how to put them together and use the brains and the brawn, and why wouldn't you? So I want to know, how did he do that? How did he figure out how to do that? Because it was always a battle. So it's not like he just one day was like, I'll just half-ass Hulk and then figure him out. Yeah. And he had such a rough time with Hulk in Infinity War. Oh, yeah. I mean, he couldn't get the green guy out. He couldn't get him out, and he, couldn't figure it out. So what happened? How did he figure him out, and then figure him out so well that he could control him to be half Banner, half Hulk?
If they do a Hulk movie, which I'm fairly confident they will. Yeah. I think that would be make it good. I think it would be a big hit. Yeah, well, it's definitely not going to be like the the other
what
Hulk.
I'm saying. There's so many other.
Well, and here's
Hulk movies
the
that
other
it's
thing
not
too,
good.
and this is kind of why we haven't really had a Hulk movie too.
Yeah.
And this is what I think Disney needs to figure out is that the reason we haven't had a full Hulk movie is because Disney doesn't own the rights to the full Hulk. Universal does. So that's kind of where we're stuck. But Hulk can be in other people's movies, which is why he's been in like Thor Ragnarok. He's been in Avengers, you know. So it's one of those things where how is Disney going to play this out? But I do believe, like you said, they need to tell the story about how Hulk had this inner struggle at the Infinity War and how he got himself out. Whether they do that within another person's movie, they need to tell that story. Because
I mean, he went from like being like a mess, like just a mess, couldn't figure it out, to like really understanding who he was in those 5 years. So how did that happen? That's all I want to know.
All right, well, let's wrap we'll start wrapping this up, and let's talk about Iron Man as our final wrap up. You know, just because this movie here was, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions too, this movie here was a big thank you and a big nod to Robert Downey Jr. For this, because I think Iron Man really was the first kind of Marvel movie that really, like, I mean, Captain America came out right around that same, like, they released a lot of these movies around the same time, but Iron Man was really, I think, the character that really brought Marvel Universe back, and it also resurrected Robert Downey Jr.'s career.
Yeah. Iron Man is what brought me into the Marvel comic universe.
Yeah.
I didn't even care about it. You know, it was just stuff my brother watched and read. I didn't care about it. But when I saw Iron Man, that's what made me be like, oh, I really love this movie and I love this guy and I could pay attention to superheroes. Like, all right, they're kind of cool. They're not nerdy. So Iron Man's what brought me into the Marvel comic universe, and I'm sure that's what brought a lot of people into MCU. And maybe that's why I just love Tony Stark so much. I don't know. I think a part of it is Robert Downey Jr. is sexy as hell, and I think he's a great actor. So thank God he didn't stay on drugs.
But that was the thing, is that this movie really did resurrect his career, and this movie was a big thank you from the Marvel Universe to Tony Stark, because he's already made it clear in interviews that it's, as he puts it, it was time for Iron Man to end.
He's kind of like bowing out gracefully. He's kind of like, I'm done. But
leaving it open for
giving Iron Man all that he needs.
But leaving it open for more. And that's the cool thing, which is what I loved about this, is that it was a thank you and a nod to him. Yeah. But it was also a look into the future of that Tony Stark just doesn't die in Endgame. Like, there's so much more to him with Pepper Potts being rescued and all the you said with Harley possibly, I love that. That's something I didn't even think about until you mentioned it. The more
we're sitting here, I'm like, he kind of left like 3 kids behind. He left Morgan. Yeah. He left Harley Quinn, and he left Peter. I consider Peter kind of one of his kids.
Well, if you think about it, in the earlier movies, Peter went to go hug Iron Man, and he said, "We're not there yet," or something along those lines. And then in this movie, they had that thing where Peter Parker came back, and they came face to face, and it was like a pause, and Tony Stark hugged him. Yeah. And you're right, it's like Peter Parker was like his kid.
So I feel like he kind of left 3 kids behind.
And by the way, there's another Spider-Man movie in the works too. So hopefully we'll get some more answers with certain things there, and they'll probably reference Tony Stark again in that. So it'll be interesting.
I also love Peter.
But let's talk about, I just want to talk about that final scene. The final scene where everyone thought that the snap is happening again with Thanos. Yeah. And then all of a sudden nothing happened, and he looked down and Tony had and I don't know if you remember this, but we've talked about this before, and in past episodes and stuff, I've talked about the significance in past movies of Tony Stark's left arm. Yeah, or Tony Stark's arm. Yeah. And I've said it throughout this whole thing. Right arm. Or right arm, sorry. And I've said it throughout this whole thing, is that I have this huge feeling that throughout all the movies, there's been like these Easter eggs with him guarding his arm, like just taking rockets from the arm, like everything. Yeah. And I've said it for this longest time. And then when all of a sudden, like, Thanos went and snapped and nothing happened, and they panned over to Tony Stark, that whole scene of Thanos saying, "I am inevitable," and then Tony Stark saying, "I am Iron Man," and then snap was... Oh,
God, guys, I'm just not okay over here.
It was the culmination of like all nerdiness for me.
Yeah.
Like that whole thing right there, just literally, I mean, I can't even explain. I was shocked. I was happy. I was stunned.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, you experience all the emotions because you're so happy, you know, the universe was just saved. Yay! But you know that, like, your favorite, even if he's not your favorite, everyone has to admit that he's a badass.
Yeah.
And he saved the universe. Yeah. I mean, yes, they all did it together. I'm not discrediting any of the Avengers. But, like, he continually has been, you know, the one to be there. The one to, like, save everybody.
Yeah, and if you go back to the battle scene on Titan in Infinity War between Tony Stark and Thanos and the rest of the people, but that it kind of foreshadowed what was going to happen in Endgame, and you know it did, and it, just the way that they did the final ending. Like the way that they, you know, did the snap with Iron Man, the way that they showed him, you know, basically dying, you know, with Pepper Potts right by his side. Peter Parker was by his side.
And I'm so glad that, you know, Pepper was there.
And they showed such a story just in that last ending. And then, you know, even in the funeral scene, you know, where it showed Tony Stark's original chess piece that, you know, said, this is proof that Tony Stark has a heart. Just everything that they did, down to Happy's comment about the cheeseburgers, going back to Iron Man 1. There was just so much like perfection in that last final scene where it, like I said, it gave a perfect nod. I mean, I literally have like goosebumps just talking about it.
Well, if you guys could see me, I'm like sitting here clutching my heart right now.
It had so much perfection to it, just giving that nod to everything that he did for the Marvel Universe, but also giving so much praise into the future of what is still left, because there is so much left. And Stan Lee did an amazing job throughout his life in creating multiple stories in the comic books that trickled down into other stories. And now that Disney owns X-Men and X-Men are part of this now, Fantastic Four is a part of it now, there's so much room for growth that the MC universe, this movie looked like it may have been an ending to it, but in the other side of it is that this next phase 4 that they talked about, the next phase 4 of the MC universe, I think, is going to just literally explode and take this to a whole different level.
So what I meant by like it's over is this series of the Avengers is over.
No, I understood what you meant.
Obviously, there are so many stories to go on. I just think like this group of the Avengers, you know, that we knew from the very first Avengers movie, they're done.
I agree.
You know, Nat and Hawkeye and Captain America and Iron Man. They're
the core
Hulk
group.
And, the OGs.
The OGs.
We have to let that rest because obviously 2 of them are dead, so...
Do you have any final thoughts?
Now I'm just thinking about Iron Man. No, I loved it. I don't know.
My final thoughts, and this is not really even a thought, it's just more of a comment, is my final thing is this movie here, like, I encourage, and not everyone's into comic books, but I encourage people to, after this movie came out, I encourage you to really look into the comic books of Marvel, because the Marvel comic books are just an amazing story in their own right. And they tell, bringing into these movies like they're doing, they're bringing these stories to life, and they're giving such a big nod to it. You know, like the creator of Thanos was in the scene. The Steve Rogers scene in the movie after the 5 years, the support group. The bald guy, he was the one that created Thanos in the comic book series. And then the other guy that played the gay guy, he was one of the Russos that created this movie. There's just so many cool throwbacks and so many cool nods in the comic books. Literally, this is why we're here, is because of these comic books. So I encourage you to, even if it's just online, like going and like researching these comic books, you know, it will give you an insight into what's left in the Marvel universe. But the excitement of not knowing what Disney and Marvel are going to put out. So that's what I would leave you with right there. And it was a great movie. I want to see it
several more times because I feel like there's even so much more that we missed.
It's one of those movies that I definitely want to watch, like, and kind of like go back and be like, oh wait, what was that? And you know, and just since I've already seen it, I just want to rewind and watch and then go, oh man, I missed that.
But obviously can't wait till we own it, like digital copy.
Disney Plus.
Someone said that they're releasing they're calling it like the Infinity Collection or something, and it has every MCU movie that has anything to do with this movie. It's like 20-something movies altogether.
I haven't heard about that yet, but that'd be awesome because there is...
the box set has the gauntlet on it.
There is a timeline of movies in order. And it would be cool if they did release something like that, which watch this in order of this one, because
someone had said it. I don't know if it's someone on Reddit made a...
Because all those end credits do tie into each other, but with that's all I really have. I don't really have any more thoughts. You guys already heard my thoughts. You heard Casey's thoughts.
We'd be talking for ever. So those were our biggest thoughts.
Yeah, we literally broke this down. If we would have went through every Easter egg, this would have been a 2.5 hour episode. Because it was literally Easter eggs upon Easter eggs. But
we'll have to try and do I'll do my own blog post too, because I know you do a lot of the blog posts. Sorry guys, I'm so bad at the blog, but I'll try and put a blog together of my Easter eggs that I had thought about, and put it up there. So expect
we'll get
that
something going.
A year from now.
Yeah, we'll get something going with that. But that was episode 28. Next week we are doing episode 29, which I am super, super excited about, because we're going to be talking about Westcott.
Yeah.
Now, you guys might be wondering
say what it was. Oh,
no, I have to. Yeah. We're going to be talking about Westcott. A lot of people don't know what Westcott is. Well, let me just put it this way. It was originally supposed to be the West Coast Epcot, which is now California Adventure. And
we'll leave it at that.
I'm going to leave it at that. So we just want to thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you guys next Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to Explore the Mouse podcast. We invite you to fill your week with everything Disney by checking us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Explore the Mouse. Also check us out at explorethemouse.com, where you can find amazing photos from our trips, our blogs, and information regarding upcoming episodes. Have a magical day, and we'll see you next week.